to make this video. I have some concerns about high Turnitin scores, and I wanted to address it as soon as I saw this week's posts for your individual work. Kind of did a review, and I just want to talk about this because I'm seeing high Turnitin scores, and you need to be checking that before your final submission. High Turnitin scores indicate similarity, and I can't accept work that has been copied from another source. Honestly, that is something that can be turned into academic services for plagiarism, and you can be issued a 0 grade, a permanent one. Most of the time, if I see that once, I'll give a student another chance to revise with a penalty, because it's not fair not to penalize when others are submitting work that's their own work or in their own words. But more than one occurrence, then I'm going to start issuing 0s. This is very serious. So you need to make sure that your score is low. What I look for when I open up that Turnitin report is I'm looking for passages that are showing word for word from a site. So I've seen that, and you can't do that. You have to take whatever you use from a source, paraphrase it in your own words, and still cite it, because you're still borrowing an idea. And you can't just quote large passages either, because that's very sparingly. But most of your work should be written in your own words and cited. If you do research for a question, I do absolutely encourage that research, but once you get the material that you want to use, you need to write it in your own words. You will have to rearrange it and say it a different way, and then you will need to cite your source. And I'm just being trying to make sure I'm very clear here, because I don't want to confuse anyone. So I don't mean to be short at all, but just want to kind of give you the facts and exactly what you need to do. So let me tell you what I do. If I do internet research, I will take a passage, maybe I'll find a passage that I want to use. If it's a longer one, of course, and I'll paste it in Word, and then I'll go under there and I'll rearrange it. I'll paraphrase it, and I'll compare make sure that what I wrote pretty much says the same thing as what I borrowed. And then I will cite it, put my little in-text citation in there and corresponding reference for use in the reference page. And then I would just copy and paste it into my document. I mean, that's just my process. That doesn't mean you need to use my process. It's just a suggestion. I think the point that I need to make is there are no shortcuts when writing papers. You absolutely have to have the time to sit there and paraphrase your sources. And there is an exercise on this site. You can see I have this page up that actually gives you paraphrase exercises if you want to try those, if that helps. And there's handouts about writing, quoting, paraphrasing, and summarizing, of course. And you want to, everything that you write in this class is research based to an extent. And research is wonderful, but you have to know how to do it correctly and use that research correctly. So make sure that you do that. Again, I don't want to give 0s out. I don't want to report people to academic services for plagiarizing. But that is my responsibility as an instructor to make sure that students are not plagiarizing. And if you're using passages from sources and not citing, or if you're using exact wording and not quoting it, you are plagiarizing technically. And you can't quote large passages, because you have to be able to show me that you can write a paper on your own and not just copy someone else's words and quote them. So quoting is to be used sparingly. Quoting is something like, okay, you've got a paragraph full of information and you want to use a quote from someone to support your point of view or your argument, something like that. That's how you use quoting. Because these are short papers you have in this class. I wrote 100, I quoted large passages, paragraphs here and there in a 200-page dissertation, but in a 2 or 3 page document, you really want to use quotes sparingly, because there's just not a lot of writing that you're doing there. So I hope this helps, and it's very important. You know, usually the first time if you do it, I will allow you to revise it with a penalty, but the second time I'm going to issue a 0, and I will report it to academic services. So please be very careful with this, because I really don't like to do that. I don't. I'm not out to get people. I really don't enjoy it, but I have to maintain the integrity of my classroom, and that's part of it. So please understand that, and let me know if you have any questions. If something is not clear, I'll be happy to assist you. I really will, and I'm very approachable. Please don't hesitate if you have a question, but please make sure that you're very careful about this. If you have to submit it early and get your score. If it's too high, revise it and submit it again. You still have to do it by the due date. The final draft needs to be in the class by the due date. Having said that, if it's not, you can submit it late. But you know, if you submit it late, it's going to be penalized, just like a late assignment would. Because there are students that are going way above and beyond what to get their assignments in on time and correct. So I have to be fair to those students. But luckily, there's a late policy, and it's pretty fair. I think it's actually more generous than some of the other schools. Well, my concern is getting a paper that is written by you and not you just using someone else's words. That's my biggest concern. So anyway, any questions or concerns, let me know, and have a great day.